Las Vegas was never supposed to exist. This is the driest state in America, where annual rainfall vanishes in days and summer brings 130-degree heat. Yet here towers a city of neon and fountains. Nevada isn't a story of human beings adapting to a desert. It's a story of the desert being overruled by federal law, vast dams, and redirected rivers. But when you build a human empire against the environment itself, the real question isn't how you succeeded, it's how long you can survive. Summer in southern Nevada is not just hot, it is relentless. Temperatures soar past 110 degrees Fahrenheit for days, with records reaching as high as 130. In the heart of the Mojave, Las Vegas sits in a valley ringed by mountains that trap heat and block out rain. Each year, the region receives barely 9 inches of precipitation, less than what falls in a single month in many American cities. But what little water does arrive is quickly erased. The sun shines more than 80% of the time, driving evaporation to staggering levels. In southern Nevada, over 100 inches of water are lost to evaporation annually, as measured in standard pans, 10 times the amount that falls as rain. The land itself offers little comfort. The air is bone dry, humidity often hovering in the single digits. Day and night, the temperature swings are brutal. A difference of 30 to 35 degrees within a single day is common, forcing every living thing to adapt or perish. At dawn, the desert may feel cool, but by midday, the heat radiates off the ground in shimmering waves. Nights bring no promise of relief, just a different kind of exposure. Isolation defines this place. The Great Basin, a vast expanse of high desert bounded by the Sierra Nevada to the west and the Rockies to the east, forms a natural fortress. Moisture-laden air from the Pacific is stripped of its rain by the Sierra's peaks. What crosses the mountains descends as dry, compressed air, leaving the valleys below in permanent drought. The rain shadow effect ensures that Nevada's lowlands remain among the most arid in North America. Soil here is thin and infertile, marked by sparse vegetation and little organic matter. The few native plants that survive are built for scarcity. The land cannot support crops or forests without intervention. For centuries, this was a place where only the hardiest species, creosote bush, Joshua tree, desert tortoise, found a foothold. The climate does not offer stability, only extremes. Floods are rare, but violent. Drought is the rule. Every metric, temperature, rainfall, evaporation, isolation tells the same story. By any natural measure, southern Nevada was never meant to host a metropolis. The scale of its hostility is written in the numbers, in the landscape itself, and in the daily struggle for water and shade. This is not an environment that invites settlement. It is one that resists it at every turn. Federal power swept into the Nevada desert with the force of law and concrete. In 1902, the Newlands Reclamation Act opened the door for the government to seize control of rivers across the West, promising to irrigate land that nature had left dry. The act created the Reclamation Service, later called the Bureau of Reclamation, and set up a self-sustaining fund built from public land sales. This money fueled an era of dam building, including early projects in Nevada that hinted at the scale of ambition to come. By the 1920s, the stakes rose from small irrigation projects to the fate of entire regions. The Colorado River, lifeblood of the Southwest, became the center of a fierce negotiation. Herbert Hoover, then Secretary of Commerce, chaired the Colorado River Commission through months of tense meetings. In 1922, 7 states agreed to divide the river's flow through the Colorado River Compact, assigning the smallest share, just 300,000 acre-feet a year, to Nevada. The compact's numbers were based on optimistic estimates, using wet years to promise more water than the river could reliably deliver. Still, the deal was struck, and the path cleared for federal intervention on an unprecedented scale. The Boulder Canyon Project Act of 1928 authorized the most audacious step yet, building a dam that would tame the Colorado and store its water for the future. Construction began in 1931 as the Great Depression gripped the nation. Frank Crow, superintendent for 6 companies, pushed the project forward at breakneck speed. Crews blasted diversion tunnels through Black Canyon, poured concrete day and night, and used innovative cooling pipes to keep the massive structure from cracking. The Hoover Dam rose 726 feet above bedrock, locking the river behind a wall of concrete and creating Lake Mead, a reservoir capable of holding 24 million acre-feet of water. With 19 turbines spinning at full capacity, the dam could generate 1.3 gigawatts of electricity, enough to power cities hundreds of miles away. Cheap water and energy flowed from the desert's edge into the heart of southern Nevada. The legal frameworks and engineering feats combined to override the limits of the desert, forcing water and power into a place that geography never intended to support. The desert was not conquered by adaptation, but by a deliberate campaign to make it yield. Land in southern Nevada, once considered worthless, suddenly became the hottest commodity in the West. The 1930s saw a wave of homesteaders and speculators staking claims across the valley, drawn not by the promise of fertile fields, but by the arrival of cheap water and power. Federal policy opened the floodgates, literally and figuratively, inviting development on a scale that would have been unthinkable just a decade before. By the 1970s, a new kind of gold rush took hold. Casino licensing exploded, transforming a dusty outpost into a neon empire. The Strip's casinos became engines of growth, pulling in workers from across the country. Hotel towers rose from the sand, each one hungrier for power and water than the last. Air conditioning was not a luxury, but a necessity, devouring electricity at a rate of 10 kilowatts for every 1,000 square feet. On the hottest days, the city's HVAC systems worked around the clock, drawing on the Hoover Dam's turbines and every backup generator the grid could muster. Tourism dollars poured in, fueling a $50 billion economy that masked the fragility beneath. Every slot machine, every fountain, every ice-cold drink in a crowded showroom depended on a chain of supply that stretched far beyond the valley. Growth became its own justification. Land was parceled, paved, and sold to the highest bidder. Developers promised an oasis, but the reality was a metropolis built on borrowed time and borrowed resources. Behind the spectacle, southern Nevada's lifelines remained thin. Water arrived by aqueduct, power by transmission line. The workforce swelled, but so did the city's appetite. Each new casino, each new subdivision, deepened the dependence on systems that could not fail, not even for a day. The desert had not been tamed. It had been put on hold, its demands deferred by the weight of money and the hum of machines. Water, power, and the machinery of everyday life in southern Nevada run on a knife's edge. The city's lifeblood arrives through a vast engineered network, but the numbers reveal just how thin that lifeline has become. Lake Mead, once the world's largest reservoir, has dropped more than 160 feet since 2000. Its surface now sits near the lowest levels ever recorded, and the loss has already cut hydroelectric output by more than 30%. Each foot of decline means less water to pump, less power to keep the lights and the air conditioning on. The region's dependence on outside sources is absolute. About 30% of southern Nevada's water is imported, while the rest is drawn from a shrinking aquifer. Snowpack in the Sierra Nevada, the main source for the Colorado River, is projected to decline by 60% by the end of the century. As the snow line climbs higher, less water will reach the river, and what does arrive will do so earlier and faster, leaving less for the dry months when demand peaks. Since 1970, Nevada has warmed by 2.8 degrees Fahrenheit, pushing evaporation even higher and making each gallon of water harder to keep. The legal frameworks that once promised security now threaten to unravel. The 2023 Drought Contingency Plan set a trigger at 895 feet for Lake Mead, a level that would force the region to confront what happens when the reservoir can no longer deliver. Every system, from water to electricity to food supply, is stretched by the same relentless forces. The question hanging over Nevada is no longer whether the desert can be kept at bay, but how long these fragile systems can hold before the engineered empire faces limits it can't escape. Today, nearly 90% of Las Vegas's water still comes from the Colorado River, now at its lowest levels in history. As climate pressures grow, the line between ingenuity and overreach narrows. Nevada's future depends on how long we can keep the illusion alive. What do you think comes next?